Electrocast.
Why wait to see if you'll get something you like this Valentine's Day when you can go to BlueNile.com and find something you'll love? Whether you're looking to treat yourself to a little winter sparkle or show a galentine how much you appreciate them, Blue Nile offers a wide selection of high-quality designs, expert guidance, and free 30-day returns for the ultimate peace of mind. You can even design your own jewelry. Right now, save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
On this episode of Missing the Point, it's our first MTP Kickabout. We'll discuss if the BBC, Sky Sports, and the mainstream media in Britain discounted Liverpool's chances of winning the Premier League this season. And how do we think Jurgen Klopp feels about having his full-strength Liverpool squad back? We'll also discuss why Lionel Messi left Barcelona to go to PSG. And also we'll talk about what steps Major League Soccer needs to take in order to be taken seriously by the likes of the Premier League, Serie A, and Bundesliga fans across the globe. This is Missing the Point, episode 80. But it's all relative.
Welcome to Missing the Point. My name is Joe Malkin, joined this afternoon, evening, good morning, whatever time of day you're listening to this. DK Dave Clarke is with us, with me from the West Coast. It's weird to say us because it's just you and me.
Craig's here.
A lot of these. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, Craig, how are you?
Just here with my cigarette in the shadows.
Yeah, right where you belong on this topic. So,
oh, that's why we call you Deep Throat? I thought it was a different connotation. No, it makes a lot of sense now.
Because I have secrets on presidents.
Well, you're probably not the only one. So speaking of secrets, Dave, we're gonna play a little an MTP football kickabout, as you so eloquently have phrased it. We're gonna call it Red versus Blue. And if you're wondering, oh, football, they always talk football. No, not that football. We're gonna talk about what Dave and most of the world would call real football. We're going to talk about the English Premier League. We're going to talk about the contract for former Barcelona superstar Lionel Messi and current Paris Saint-Germain superstar Lionel Messi. And we're going to mix in some other things, probably talking about the EPL. But also what we're going to do is Dave and I have an interesting connection in the football world where Dave is a Liverpool fan and I am a supporter of Everton, which they currently, until 2023, but currently they play 0.6 miles away from each other in the city of Liverpool in England, on the border of England and Wales. And I'm probably boring all of our listeners at this point with this, but what we're going to do is take a look at the English Premier League. We're going to take a look at Dave's team, Liverpool, my team, Everton, and where they came from.
Did you ever hear the story of how Liverpool was made because of Everton? Do you know the whole backstory?
That I do not know.
So originally Everton was, and this is back in the late 1800s, they, the people who owned the stadium and the owners of the team were like separate people. So the guy who owned the stadium of Anfield, which is where Liverpool play now, Everton played there. And there was like some sort of contract dispute and they were like, it's cool. We'll go across and build a stadium over at Goodison Park. And then we'll become that Everton and you won't have a football team anymore. And he was like, actually, I'm going to fucking start my own football team. So in 1892, Liverpool was founded as the second team to play at Anfield. It used to be Everton's home team. Little interesting factoid there, Joe, for your for the background on your toffee blue football team that you like inexplicably.
It's not inexplicably, but we can talk about that story as well because soccer, football, association football has gotten a lot bigger in the United States over the last few years, probably over the last decade. It's really kind of taken off. The MLS has gotten huge, and Americans just have more exposure because there's not much better as an American than to turn on NBC Sports on a Saturday morning and see Rebecca Lowe's face start talking about the English Premier League, because not only is she awesome at her job, she's one of my favorite sportscasters in the world. Probably, I think she does.
She is really good. She like, there's a lot of really good sports casters or like hosts or commentators, whatever, buried in these weird kind of what an American would consider niche sports. Have you noticed that? Like, there's a couple of UFC guys. This guy John Anik at UFC, unbelievable. Like, he's like the most polished play-by-play guy in all of sports to me. And then, but like, he's just stashed away in the UFC because like, those people don't die, I guess. Like, it's like all the football guys are like 100, and I'm like, I'm looking at Terry Bradshaw, who has been hit in the head way too many times, and he's like trying to form coherent sentences, and I'm like, oh man, it's such a good old boys club.
That's been a problem in American football for a long time.
Oh,
guys that just were good at the game at one point, all of a sudden think they can talk about it.
It's so
good.
So good. And I always like Collinsworth.
Yeah, Collinsworth. See, you and I are in the camp. Sometimes I like Collinsworth, and other times I don't. But the guy's good.
I like him. I just like how he breaks down plays. I don't listen to him otherwise, but I get why people are annoyed by him. And I also, would America, like, I think Rebecca Lowe could come in and be the next Al Michaels. But would America like reject a lady with an English accent doing American football? Of course they would.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. What they would have to do is really grow the MLS to a point where they get rid of their silly salary cap rules and roster rules. They have to put in promotion relegation, and then maybe somebody like that would be respected in that fashion. But she's very well respected in the European football circle in America.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's really good. And I remember the days of watching Fox, with the Premier League on Fox, and like, no disrespect to Fox, but like, they hired a British, I think they just pulled people in off the street to be their commentators, because none of them were very good.
At that point, they kind of had to.
Yeah, I don't even mind like the two Robbies. The two Robbies,
they're
are fine on NBC. Like, it's a good product. They put the product together well.
We talked about Men in Blazers, who have a great podcast. They have a TV show. I mean, they've kind of come from literally just talking nonsense about football, and now they're one of the biggest football podcasts in the world. So and that's what we're going to become with this show alone, Dave. So to give you the backstories, you gave me that wonderful backstory on Anfield and Goodison Park, which is funny because Goodison Park isn't actually even in the Everton neighborhood of Liverpool, but they're still called Everton. But Liverpool plays in the Everton neighborhood.
Yeah, that's why. It makes sense now, right?
Right. Now it does make sense. And Everton will be moving into a new stadium in 2 years' time. So there's
a third team right across the River Mersey called Tranmere Rovers.
They're in League 2, League 1,
3. I don't know. They've always been shy.
It's so funny. All right, so this is an interesting point, because I have a lot of friends. I have a friend who's a big Arsenal supporter, big Liverpool supporter. But what I always find interesting is people who are big supporters of their team in the Premier League never really know the lower leagues in England. Like I don't know.
Yes. Why would you? It's a different product. I do to a certain extent. I mean, there's certain teams I know about because I remember Liverpool playing them in the FA Cup. And when the FA Cup rolls around, that's actually like, that's the kind of Super Bowl season for the lower league teams, because they get to go and play like the Liverpools, Manchester United. It sounds condescending when you talk about it like in those terms, but it makes them a lot of money, and you can like send all, you sell out your stadium first off, right? There's no question about that. And then you kind of get to have this big pageantry day if like we're playing Liverpool. And like that, if they win, which happens in the FA Cup, from time to time, like a big team, maybe they don't field the right team, or they're not taking it seriously, or they're just having an off day, and they get like giant killed by like an FA Cup team. That's like the coolest thing ever when that happens, and except for me when it's Liverpool. But that's a thing I've always tried to draw American supporters in with, which hasn't really made sense to them, where I'm like, no, all these competitions happen kind of like at the same time. So it'd be like if the NBA had like an alternative league that was going on at the same time as the NBA.
Which they were talking about doing.
Yeah, and you would like play with your same team, but it would be like a different competition, like a different tournament. And like the prestige of these said tournaments is kind of decided by the public, So for a long time, like when my dad was growing up, the FA Cup was huge to win. Like everybody wanted to win the FA Cup, and it was like a prestigious honor because everyone would field their best teams and they would try their best. With fixture congestion, and then with the advent of like the European Cup, was now the Champions League, you have bigger competition with bigger money, with like more players coming in, and they're kind of like, the FA Cup, whatever. So that kind of hurts the lower league teams. So
Right.
I feel like, my generation, just in a very long-winded way, that's your question. My generation of football supporter, and probably your friend who likes Arsenal, are not as connected to the lower league teams, but like the old, what we call in Ireland and they call in England, the Al fellas. Like if you ask the Al fellas, like, do you remember, Brighton Hove Albion did something cool. They have or Wimbledon FC. Like they always have I remember the FA Cup final in 1970, whatever the fuck. And you're like, see, they know all these teams. So, and then also, I have the added disadvantage of having never lived in England. And although I know the geography of it because of watching the Premier League, I don't have any real connection to where these towns are. You know what I mean? Some kind of whatever. But yes, I'm a shit Premier League supporter because I'm not, I don't know anything about the lower leagues.
Well, it's so interesting because it's not a bad, good Premier League supporter because you pay attention to the league. You could probably name as I probably could as well, name all 20 teams in the league.
Yeah, I could definitely name all 20 teams in the league.
Yeah, right. Something else that's just so amazing that we don't see in American sports, not along with tournaments going on at the same time as the season. Again, the only thing we can really equate it to is the MLS, right? Which, of course, you called the semi-pro soccer in the pre-show, which is fine. I understand. But they have the U.S. Cup.
I've never heard of the U.S. Cup. Is that real?
The U.S. Open Cup, yeah. They
that was called.
It is, and literally it'll be teams from the Revolution, the New England Revolution, who I am a season ticket holder of. I love going to their games. Good way to get up.
Yeah, they were fun. They're fun. I've been to a few Revs games,
and they just won as in their top of the league, which would be great in most other leagues because it means something in most other leagues here.
My personal opinion on it is that they have to stop Americanizing the MLS. Like just play, kind of like what you're just saying. Like just play it the way it's meant to be played. Like line it up with all the big leagues across Europe, and then you can start to mold yourself after them and get the talent, and then start to compete at those higher levels. And that's your best bet, because this whole salary cap thing to try and playoffs and try to make it like a more American friendly product. It's not for me, but maybe the numbers dispute that.
American football is king in the United States, but there are plenty of leagues. Ireland.
The name thing has been a thing too, right? The fact that it's called football, everyone's like, I don't trust it. That sounds communist.
And then the whole thing behind the name soccer, it's like, all right, it came literally from association football, which is what Americans called football before we changed it to soccer. So it's just it's interesting to watch, but I think that the MLS itself needs to go to promotion relegation, number one, which is a hard sell for Americans.
Is there enough teams to do that?
After 2023 there'll be 28 teams, so there's enough, and you have USL teams that can play pretty well. In Pittsburgh they have the Pittsburgh River,
so you could maybe get take the shittest 8 teams and put them in MLS B or whatever, right? Or MLS 2. That's the best you do right now. And just have them play each other all the time and just knock the shit out of each other. And then they play an 8-team playoff or a 16 playoff or whatever the fuck. And then you do maybe 2 go up and 2 go down. Cause I don't know if there's enough teams for 3. I don't know. There's a lot to work out there.
I think there's enough, but I think they're going to work towards it because I think they have to. And the U.S. Open Cup, the U.S. Open Cup is something that's interesting because, the U.S. Open Cup. So in England, any team that's within the English FA can play in that, right? So even the teams that are based in Wales that play in the English FA can play in the MLS or in America, the U.S. Open Cup. The Canadian teams can't play in it,
right?
And they have their own championship that they.
Right.
And then another problem is the North American Champions League. We could fix all the problems.
The Wales thing is weird though because it's Wales is a small enough country. I feel where they kind of have that fielding teams issue.
Sure, but there's not enough. There's not.
Scotland and Ireland have their own.
Right.
They have their own, and they don't play. The only time you would ever see any, and this would be pretty unlikely, but every time you'd see an English team play a Scottish or Irish team is probably in the European Cup and the Champions League. So and I think people have been calling for that. It'd be cool because everyone always asks the question, Celtic and Rangers are the 2 best teams, or historically the 2 best teams in Scotland, and then it's a hot button pub debate that people like to have. Like you've heard this conversation a million times of like pubs in Ireland, it's like, or Scotland or whatever. Like, oh, if you put Celtic in the Premier League, they'd come in fourth or third, or they'd win the whole thing. They're really whatever, like, or 10th or whoever, who knows, right? So, I always reckon they'd be like a mid-table team.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, they would be. Celtic is Everton North. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, no, they're good. They're good. They're, I always had a soft spot for them because like the Catholics are supposed to like Celtic and the Protties are supposed to like Rangers, but then Steven Gerrard went to Rangers and I'm like, which do I care about more? Like, like people have been killed over the first one, but like, sounds serious. Like, is someone going to get angry with me? Anyway, so there's that of the connection. But yeah, like open borders are a good thing in football. The more teams play each other, the better you get because you get more competition. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why that Super League thing was such a pile of shit. And I don't want to get into that because I'm sure it's talked to death by everybody. But that's why that was so stupid because it's like, you're just like, you guys are all just going to play each other all the time. Like, that just sounds fucking ridiculous.
I'd have a problem with like an 8-team second league for the MLS. There was a conversation.
Yeah, that wouldn't be enough. You're probably right.
Right. And, another thing that has been floated is that, and it's always floated in American sports, is that the MLS and the Liga BBVA, or Liga Mexico.
That was good. I would have fucked that up.
Liga MX would combine and they'd make 2 leagues out of the 2 leagues, basically.
Right.
And have the top teams from the 2. But
there's loads of good club teams down at the further south you go. There's loads of good club teams. Like all the Argentinian teams and all the Brazilian teams are like, they're great. But if I guarantee if like you started having MLS teams play Brazilian teams, like there'd be fucking murders. Like something would happen because the MLS fans are actually pretty legit, and I think that they have like their own kind of standing in fandoms, where people are like, oh yeah, they're kind of, and like their supporter sections are like pretty legit, and I think that's cool. And I heard something like, so I think my brother told me like they like copied the German teams, or like they had the German, like some guy taught them how to like do German supporting. I don't know. I heard that, but that's like a half.
Yeah, it's very just from what I've seen, what I've watched, because you can get a lot of these wacky leagues. If you just turn the TV on, sometimes you can watch Brazilian league games. You can watch.
Yeah, and they kick the fuck out of each other too.
Oh yeah, they do. They beat the crap out of.
Yeah, every like 2 years, you hear a story about like them beheading a referee or something. You're like, maybe we should not the MLS teams play this, guys.
I know it happens in Africa, and it's like, guys,
I should laugh,
but yeah, right. But it is kind of amusing. It's like at the end of the day, it is a game, but it is so intense. But I've heard that story too, where they kind of taught American fans how to watch football properly. And I mean, the American game is pretty close to the German game. It's big and it's
in everything except for like quality of player.
Sure, no, yeah, without a doubt.
Is that true though? I didn't know that about the American soccer.
The style is so close to the German,
like the pace. Is it the pace?
The physicality and the pace.
Everyone's big. You said
you play. Yeah, the quality of play is higher because it's much easier in other leagues to sign foreign players.
Yeah,
and big name foreign players. They make it so difficult here. I mean, there's always been conversation of these guys coming over here, and everybody's going, Messi's going to go to the
ain't catching when they're old or whatever.
Yeah, like Zlatan came here for 2 years, and it was like he kind of just dominated the league, which was kind of a point to the MLS.
But did he go back to United and it was still good?
He went back to United and then was still good, but then
he was like fresh off of being pretty good at United, right? Either one or the other.
Yeah, and then he went off and he owns a team and plays for, I think he's back in Sweden. But
that shtick is a bit old, isn't it? That old Zlatan's shtick, like underbirds, so brilliant. I'm like, yeah, you're all right, mate. Like, but fucking hell, like you've had the same joke since I was like 20. It's like have a new joke. And then I heard he said some weird shit. But like did he say some like racist shit to somebody one day on a football pitch? I don't know. Zlatan fell off for me.
Yeah.
It was cool for a while, but then it's like he got kind of grimy.
I think he tried to come and be cool in the United States.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, lame. But that German style is cool as well because, like, Jurgen Klopp came into Liverpool and he was like, there's a bunch of fucking midgets on this team. We have to get a bunch of fucking big tall guys. And now we're massive.
Yeah.
And it's so entertaining to watch a massive bunch of lads play for your football team and just be bigger and stronger and weirdly faster than everybody else. It's awesome.
As long as Van Dijk can stay healthy this year.
Yeah, I mean, all right, we're going to get into this.
Well, no, I know what keep looking into it. This was more of a segue into it, because for those of you that don't pay attention much, but in the it was one of the first few weeks of the season last year.
Yeah, you cunts injured him.
I was going to say, where Everton and England goalkeeper Jordan Pickford,
big awkward fucking lump.
Yeah, he makes those tackles all the time when he rolls out, and he went after Virgil van Dijk and kind of.
I don't think it was intentional. I just think he's a big clumsy fuck.
But you're right. It wasn't the first time it's happened. Where Pickford has committed this foul.
It reminded me of like when it happened. Do you remember the show Punk'd with Ashton Kutcher? It was in the zeitgeist for a while. It was a real cultural touchstone. And sometimes, or at least one time, they did a prank where they replaced some sort of very expensive piece of art with like a prop, and they had whatever celebrity it was at the time, like Shia LaBeouf, I don't know, like knock it over. And then they're like, you just knocked over like $1 billion piece of art. Like that was the prank, right? However that celebrity felt pre-reveal was how I felt when Jordan Pickford damaged for like, I was like, it was like some idiot, some like child walked into like the Louvre and like drew on the fucking Mona Lisa. It said, who even let him near the Mona Lisa? Why is he anywhere over there? This is absolutely ridiculous. You know what I mean? So I knew it was bad right when it happened, and it completely fucking derailed our season last year. You know, it smashed up our season so hard. So, cause like he goes out, and you notice this in the Norwich game, I feel like it's like he goes out and then everything kind of folds back in on itself going backwards, you know, because it's like, you can pretty much leave Virgil van Dijk by himself, you know, holding the line back there, and everybody else gets to like run forward and do whatever they want. And people are like, oh, what's going on with our attack? It's like, well, everyone's fucking injured, first of all. And now the midfielders and the fullbacks have to help out inside a lot more than they're used to, which expose things like Trent Alexander-Arnold's one-on-one defending, which like, you know, everyone's going to be better at that when Virgil van Dijk's behind you, you know, right. Or like Joel Matip behind you even, you know, and he was hurt as well. And like going down to the center house you went down to, that's going to have a ripple effect throughout the whole team. On Norwich, when we played Norwich, granted, I'll start with this. They're not brilliant, you know, and they were ravaged by COVID, and they didn't have a great preseason because of that. So I'm trying not to overreact. We're like, I don't know, it's Liverpool, so I have a tendency to.
Yeah, sure.
And I thought we were fucking great, you know, like Virgil being back makes all the difference. Players look at him and they go like, like what's the point? Like they hold the ball up and Virgil's across him and they go like, I'll just pass it. Because he's like his reputation precedes him at this point. It's like, remember when nobody would throw to Ed Reed or like anywhere near Ed Reed? You know what I mean? It was like, yeah, his like interception numbers fell off, but that's because nobody will throw anywhere near him. You know what I mean? So same thing like Richard Sherman, that was like an argument with him all the time. It's like, nobody ever throws to that side because they know he's got it covered. So like it screws up your like impact stance on defense or whatever. It just made all the difference. And honestly, it felt like being wrapped up in a big fuzzy blanket watching it. It was like, Virgil's back. And he came in and it was like COVID hit and like Virgil got hurt and like 2020 happened and the shit season with no fans. And then Virgil came back and he was like, you've suffered long enough, my son. Like, it's going to be all right. And he like wrapped me up in a fuzzy blanket and like laid me down. And he was like, don't worry. And I have to say, on that note, the fact that no pundit, no media organization or outlet, no newspaper, no person who's paid to write about or talk about football gave Liverpool a shot at winning the league this season, which I think is an absolute dereliction of duty. We walked the league 2 seasons ago. Walked it. We were on pace for like 120 points. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, if you have Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool at Anfield and you have a healthy Virgil van Dijk, and they spend the money that they spend, which actually hasn't been a lot of money.
They got that guy Konate, though. He looks the business.
Yeah, but they got Joel Matip, as you've written in here. You know, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. That's always a tough one. The team that they've put together, there's no reason why they shouldn't be the favorite. Who was the favorite?
Man City. Well, Man City are definitely going to be the favorite, right? Because like they spent $100 million on Jack Grealish. They won the league last year. They won the most leagues of anyone in the past 10 years or so, whatever it is. They've got the most money. And like, there is actually a correlation of like highest wage bill, most points, right? The anomaly being Liverpool a lot of the time. We jump up 3 or 4 places. We have like the 3rd or 4th highest stuff nowadays. But yeah, City are the favorites. No problem. You buy Jack Grealish for 100 million. You've averaged a crazy high amount of points in the last few seasons. And you probably have another 150 million to spend on Harry Kane. Like, that's probably what's going to happen, And that's a very formidable outfit, I think. And like Pep Guardiola, I don't thumb my nose at him. I think he's a very good football manager. But I do believe that it's different to manage a football team into being really good when you have $1 billion to spend, as opposed to how Jurgen Klopp has been forced to do it. Because, as you guys know, Fenway Sports Group, the FSG, John Henry and co., they could be a little tight-fisted sometimes. And I've noticed, talking to my baseball friends, the Red Sox fans, they kind of say like, they want to win, but the spending sometimes is like they won't because they know they're not going to win or whatever it is. Right. Maybe the money is a little bit different in England. Like maybe it's more, I think the football might be a bit more expensive to try to compete in like the global market, especially. So they might not look as big a fish as they do in baseball, because in baseball, they're one of the top richest, right? Am I wrong about
Yes. Yeah.
They like two or three. So they're not that by any stretch in football. So they try to kind of moneyball it, but that's become kind of a bad word in Liverpool circles. But they spend when they need to, and they've brought success back to Anfield. So there's a lot of FSG out people. A lot of people that don't like them. They resent being owned by Americans, which is, a thing. Especially, like you'll notice the FSG out crowd get louder when Americans are being bigger tossers on the world stage. It's just like, what are these guys? But like during the Trump era, they got real loud. I don't know. I haven't done any studies on that. But I think they've been decent owners overall, to be honest with you. They got Virgil van Dijk and Alisson and won us the Champions League. So like and then a league. And I'm not super angry with them.
They've been better than some of the other American owners, like the Glazers, who are just bad owners.
But it's even tough to compete with them. They got fucking boatloads of cash.
Yeah.
And like they could spend shitloads of money. And Man City is backed by an entire country. And Arsenal have a lot of weird shit going on, but like I think there's money in there somewhere. They just always seem to spend it in the wrong places.
They're fall fast.
And Chelsea, obviously, Russian oligarch money. So you're competing with a lot of really, really rich football clubs for success. But so I think that might be why. Maybe Liverpool weren't super relevant in the transfer window, so people are like, they weren't great last year, But like, they still have a bunch of boss fucking players. They still have the best manager in the league, in my opinion. So
he is my favorite manager. He probably is the best manager. I think Pep is number 2, and it sucks because I dislike Liverpool because of the Fenway Sports Group, because of their proximity to Everton, because of the obvious reasons why people wouldn't like Liverpool, but also Jurgen Klopp is one of the best. And same thing with Pep. Pep's outstanding. And then
anybody would have Jurgen Klopp as their manager. And if you read on the internet, somebody being like, "Oh, he's a fucking passion merchant," blah blah blah. It's like, you're jealous, bro. You're jealous. I can tell. He's so great. He's handsome. He's tall. He's charismatic. His outfits are always on point. I mean, he's great.
He dresses just as well as he manages his team. So speaking of that, you've gone on your Liverpool run here, and we'll keep going with that because Liverpool beat Norwich in match week 1, 3-0. That was at home, right? Was that at Anfield?
No, it was at Norwich.
It was on the road.
Yeah, it was away.
But you kind of ran through this. The team is coming back. Nobody has picked Liverpool to win the league. And then going into the players that you just mentioned, and I love your line that you wrote here, but it's not necessarily wrong. Do you really believe Alisson Becker is the best keeper in the world?
Oh yeah, easily. It's not even close. It's honestly not even close. It's him, and then fucking a bunch of space, and then I don't know who's next. Probably some lad on fucking, whoever the PSG guy is or some shit. It doesn't matter. Alisson's unbelievable. Like, he's unbelievable. If you watch him every week, it's just like it's mesmerizing. Like the some of the stuff that he pulls off. A couple of saves he had at the end of the Norwich game, it was just like. The closest I've seen in my lifetime, and I know there's been a lot of really good goalkeepers, especially in the English leagues, with like, the actual homegrown English players that like my dad always talks about being good goalkeepers, like Gordon Banks and stuff like that. And then there's like Peter Schmeichel for United was like really good, but I didn't really watch those guys. The closest I ever saw do what Alisson does, and he didn't even do it as good as Alisson, was De Gea for United, where he actually had this weird effect on the goal where like players were trying to like stick him every time. Like they were trying to put it in the top corner every single time because they had kind of the yips when they went up to De Gea because they were like, and Liverpool were bad about this as well. They wanted to put it on a postage stamp in the top left-hand corner because they were just worried De Gea would save it. Otherwise, his reputation would come ahead of him. And I've noticed that same exact thing happen with Alisson. Like he just takes their souls right at the start of the game, and like he'll make a save and he'll just be a presence. And his catching is underrated. His distribution's really, really good. Yeah. Oh yeah. He's definitely the best one. I mean, I think most people would agree. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I live in a bubble.
Yeah, I would have both agree. I mean, and that's coming from,
a lot of people hate Liverpool. I get that,
Well, sure. But I mean, but again, you can't, we, as a baseball fan, we were taught growing up, hate the Yankees, hate the Yankees, hate the Yankees. I loved Derek Jeter. I loved Mariano Rivera. I loved Jorge Posada because they were great baseball players. You can't hate on greatness, even when your team is getting the short end of the stick on it. But part of the reason why he is so good as well for Liverpool is because of the defensive backline of Virgil van Dijk, Joel Matip. You have Konate, Joe Gomez. Then you have the Greek Kostas Simikas and Tsimikas, and which is a weird pronunciation for a.
Could be totally wrong. It's just how all the Liverpool leads are saying.
Yeah, well, right. It's funny. So it's funny how that happens too, especially in England, because we say things a lot differently over here. But it's funny because there's like Mourinho. It's Jose Mourinho is whenever and everybody here is like, that's Jose, and they're like, no, it's not, and it's like, whether it's right or wrong, it always seems that the English come up with pronunciations for things, for names.
We had players at Liverpool when I was a teenager that I found out. I was watching a guy named Dirk Kuyt. I was watching him for like 5 years, and everybody's calling him Kite, like fly a kite. And then finally one day it just kind of clicked for everybody. Like, I don't know if he was in an interview or whatever. It's like, we were reading fucking his name up for like 5 fucking years. He was like bagging in goals for Liverpool. Like, everyone's like, yeah, Kite. He's like, who?
Who's that? Is this some new guy?
Yeah, then like there's commentators add to it too. Like if the commentators don't get it right, then that'll send everyone into a kind of a weird mispronunciation spiral. So and it's eclectic, right? It's people from all over the world. Like I know it's a melting pot here, but most people's names got Ellis Islanded. So I feel like, when you get the pre-Ellis Island names, when you get raw dogged with names over in the European League, you get it right from the source, right from the babbling brook, and they're hard in English because they're not English names.
Right. So and the English always seem to pronounce every syllable. If they do get it wrong, it's usually every syllable and every letter in the name. So good midfield. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, who he's fine. Their midfield, honestly, the midfield is the weakest point for me for Liverpool.
That's not really our midfield, is the thing. And I agree with you 100% on your lukewarm assessment of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, although his song is good.
That's fair.
Catchy tune. So I'm lukewarm on him as well. I have a very strong theory that he needs to let. And if you know this expression and you know what I mean, let me know. He needs to let the game come to him a little bit more. He forces things, and sometimes he comes on like he'll come on as a substitute sometimes, and he'll be a machine, and he's just like, I'm making this happen, and he'll have an impact. That's why he's great off the bench, in my opinion. But he kind of has that same attitude when he goes into starting a match, and then he's forcing it, and then he kind of has to disappear because he's been trying too hard. And I just think if he got a run of games in a really strong midfield, he'd be able to do good. I feel the same way about Naby Keita. But yes, the midfield is the weakest point. However, that was not our starting midfield across all three. The starting midfield is Fabinho, who is, in my opinion, and I might start to sound redundant here, the best number 6 in the world. It's been between him and Conte and Chelsea. I think they do different things. I think Fabinho's fucking up there, top 5 holding midfielders. Fucking spider legs, go gadget legs. Like he makes tackles he should never. He has no right to. He's brilliant. He's massive. Like you said, the German system. He's massive. So he's great. He's a starter. Henderson, our captain, obviously, and then Thiago, I think, is the other guy, the Spanish stud who's played on Barcelona and Bayern Munich and won fucking everything there is to win. And he's a brilliant passer, and he was just getting used to the league last year. So I think when he comes in, if he can stay healthy, that midfield's pretty great. But I do agree that midfield is the weakest point, but that's only because the other two spots are so strong, Joe.
Well, that's what I was going to say as we got up to the attack is that, the only name you need to mention for Liverpool is Mo Salah, the Egyptian wonder kid, who has just been outstanding in his career with Liverpool and kind of came out of nowhere a few years ago his career is very interesting, but he has been better in the later parts of his career, and he makes it happen up top.
He's deadly. He's deadly. He's got such a crazy fitness regimen. He always comes back in, and he also he's Muslim, so he doesn't drink, which probably helps. Like I'm sure a few of the lads, like Andy Robertson's getting pissed in the summertime, just having a good time with his friends. Mo Salah comes back in peak physical condition every year, and that's why I think a big part of why he's got this record of the only guy to ever score in his first 5 consecutive starts. So the past 5 years, he scored in the first game every single time, which I think is pretty impressive. It's a pretty cool stat because that means he always comes back in rip-roaring ready to go. And I agree. I think he looked even better this year, and I think he is going from strength to strength. And what I really liked about him in the Norwich game was my one criticism of him has been he doesn't pass the ball enough when he's in front of goal. He almost did it too much against Norwich. He was trying to get everybody involved. I think it's because he's decided he's going to be the best player in the league this year and potentially the best player in the world. I think he's going for an insane numbers here. I think, the post Ramos, I hurt my shoulder year and all the kind of different stuff that's happened to him, COVID, ups and downs. He's we're back. I'm making a run. I'm used to my team now. I play with all my teammates for enough years. His agent can be a bit of a shithead sometimes, but whatever. I think he's here for hopefully we'll get him down to a new contract soon, but it's going to be expensive. He's an absolute stud. So I always love Mane. My personal favorite is Mane in the attack because just his style. It just reminds me of the really speedy, tricky ringers I watched when I was younger. But Salah's undeniable. He's just absolutely undeniable. And there's not enough superlatives that you can pick out to talk about how fucking excellent he is at football because he's just so good. And he could have had 3 goals and 3 assists, against Norwich if a couple of things go different ways. So he's very happy to have Mo Salah on my team.
And he's only 29 years old, which is, some would say, in his prime.
Hell of a beard for a 29-year-old.
Well, yeah, and that would say some would say that was right around the time that Jamie Vardy really came on the map for Leicester.
Yeah, nobody knew who the fuck he was before he was 20.
Before 2016, when he just started banging him in left,
banging him in,
and you could win a lot of money if you put money down on Leicester to win the championship because they were 10,000 to 1 to win, and they did it and they pulled it off.
I mean, you don't want to sound like the miserable old guy, but. I remember that season and it was cool that everybody got involved in it and I don't want to take anything away from them, but that was the season of everybody else underperforming.
Oh yeah, no,
it was 6 teams just that just had no business fucking playing football that year.
Yeah, and I mean, and Leicester's played well since, so it wasn't a flash.
Especially embarrassing for Tottenham. That was Tottenham's best chance at winning the league. They were right there and they just couldn't put it together. It was just you guys, come on.
They had a tough last 5 years to Tottenham because
fuck them.
Because everybody else got better, and they were considered one of the top teams in the league.
They were in a Champions League final a few years ago. They lost, I think.
Yeah, and then Liverpool gets a lot better, and Man City started spending a lot more money, and then of course Tottenham's got this brand new beautiful stadium that they're making, and it's all right, well they're underperformed, so.
They're in there now, I think.
They're in there now. Which it was, of course, supposed to be this NFL haven as well.
Right, when the NFL come to England,
yeah. We'll see when and if that happens this year. I think you've kind of run down the team a little bit, but another favorable game, knock on wood, for Liverpool this weekend in week 2 against Burnley, who have been in the league for a while now. I mean, they've stayed up since coming up a few years ago. What are you predicting for Liverpool in there? I think this is their home opener, isn't it?
It's their home opener. It's a little disappointing it's a 12 kickoff because they have a little bit more of a lukewarm atmosphere at the earlier kickoff times. Obviously, Anfield under the lights, Champions League, 8, 9 o'clock kickoff, whatever it is in England. It's 8 o'clock kickoff. They have legendary stories about like those atmospheres. And I was a little disappointed that the first game back at Anfield, after, it's going to be the first full capacity Anfield for like what you refer to as a regular season game, it would be popping a lot more, I think, if it was like later in the day. But whatever, who cares, right? I think it's still going to be popping for a 12:30 match, which is like 4:30 here on the West Coast. So that's going to be a fun wake up. But like, I haven't missed a game yet. So I think it'll be good. I think Anfield's going to win the game for us, whatever happens. I think we're the better team. No disrespect to Burnley, but come on. Liverpool are going to win every fucking game this year.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Burnley, though. I mean, Burnley's not a bad team. They can be a mid-table team. They can finish top 10.
And, very old team. Very like they've been around. They're an old-timer. They're not a newcomer on the scene. Burnley's been a football team for longer than Liverpool has, so good for them.
And they still have the guys from that original team on Burnley. Walking.
Here's old Pops McGibbon coming down the wing.
Yeah. I'm trying to see who's their manager at Burnley. It used to be. Yeah. Okay. It's Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche. Yeah.
He's that fucking orange round-headed guy. I don't like him.
Yeah. He's kind of an interesting looking guy.
Him and Klopp always go at it, and I'm always immediately on Klopp's side. But then I think maybe he likes Dyche. I don't know. They always yell at each other.
I feel like all the managers yell at each other for some reason.
They're especially bad.
Speaking of Jurgen, though, did he get LASIK or contact lenses? Because
nobody fucking asked him. What a fucking derelict duty that is, right? I haven't heard one journalist ask him the question. I said it right away when he came back for like pre-season. Like I was watching the video on like Liverpool.com. Manager arrives at training ground, and I just watched him walk from his car into the building. I'm like, yay, it's starting. And he didn't have his glasses on. I immediately clocked it. And who's to know? He doesn't have a Twitter. I can't ask him.
Yeah, he doesn't have anything. So
ask him in a press conference, James Pierce. Jesus.
Yeah, but the glasses are iconic. So he needs to keep the.
I know they sold all this merch. I got like 4 magnets in my fridge that have like a silhouette of Jurgen Klopp and glasses. I feel like I might get my money back.
Do you think he has like nightmares of you being a Liverpool supporter because of your
Lee's all in, man. She's diehard. Yeah. She could go into a pub in Liverpool and win a trivia game right now, like about Liverpool.
With you around, that doesn't surprise me. And
she's when I met her,
so
when I met Leah, she was an LA Galaxy fan, and one of our first dates, I took her to the bar and just made fun of the LA Galaxy for like an entire hour or however long you guys play football matches for in America. Is it 90 minutes?
90 minutes. Let's try it.
I don't know. You do everything fucking weird, different. No doubt about it. I did it for like 90 minutes, and I was like, let's just come watch the Liverpool game. And like, you can see the difference because she played soccer her whole life. And she was like, yeah, this is a lot better. No offense to the NFL or MLS, I mean. But yeah, no, she's diehard, man. She wakes up. She'll be up at 4:30 watching the matches this weekend. So.
Wow. But you guys couldn't agree on an American football team.
It was too late before we met. It was before we met.
Yeah.
And they play each other. The Steelers and the Bears play each other this year. That could be tense.
We don't have to referee that one. We might have to do a show.
Start reading up on the deposit rules on these wedding venues.
Okay. See, can I get my money back?
If I get fucking maimed one day.
Well, those Steelers fans are a little angry. So they're always angry. But none of them will be listening to this show anyway. So
well, I know one that will.
Well, yeah, she's crazy because she's with you, but that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, sure.
So something we mentioned before is we're going to flip the script from red to blue. But something we mentioned before and I've thrown in there is that in week 1 of the Premier League season, no games ended in a draw. So there are 10 teams tied for first place and 10 teams tied for 11th.
I mean, that's good. Nobody likes to draw. You know what I mean? Nobody likes to draw, really. Like, I don't mind a point, like in the Napoleonic sense, in the grand scheme of a Premier League season, there's games where I'm very happy to get a point, get out of there. You know, I don't mind going to Man City and getting a point. Obviously, you won all 3, but you get a point, you're fine. It doesn't ruin your weekend. You know what I mean? To get a point at the Etihad or Chelsea at Stamford Bridge at Old Trafford doesn't hurt you. But from the American fans' perspective, I know you guys have a bit of a hurdle when it comes to the tie, and you kind of want to see it seen out to its bitter conclusion, to the death. You know,
Which is kind of interesting because when they changed that in hockey, a lot of people were upset that they were taking the tie out of hockey. And then that went away because then they were like, oh, well, no, it's going to be a winner.
explain to me though, how do the point systems work in hockey? You get both teams get 1 point if you draw.
If you go to, right.
And then you can get all 3 if you win.
Correct. But it's only 2.
Oh, it's only 2. So you're splitting the 3 points at the end or whatever it is.
Splitting the 2. So
there's 2 points. It's always 2 points. Okay.
2 if you win, but if you go to if you go to overtime, each team is guaranteed a point. The winner gets 2.
I think you could do that. Like you could probably apply that. Like that might work in the MLS. That's a rule that might actually like work if you did it.
That's not bad. But I don't. I mean, this is where I've becoming a fan of real football. Has enlightened me is that if you can't figure it out in 90 minutes, you get a point, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah. Except in like tournament style. You know, you got it. It's type of thing events. That's why you have the kind of side by side league, so you can like implement these different rules. And then you know what I will say though, I know I've done that Major League Soccer a lot tonight, but I will say this: I firmly and for a long time held the belief that the penalty that the old MLS or old American, no, it's brilliant. Oh, it's great. It's like a hockey penalty. They take it. You put the ball in the half. Just correct me if I'm wrong, right? But you put the ball on the halfway line, and it's just 1v1 you versus the keeper. Keeper can come out. You can try and go around him. You can shoot early. You can shoot late. But like you got to get it done. It's a 1v1 situation. If he turns you around and he sends the ball the other way at all, like he wins, you got to do it in one go. Way fucking better. Can you imagine how much more exciting that would be? It's so much more. That's the whole point.
But isn't there such a suspense? And this is kind of rhetorical because we both know the answer is yes. But isn't there this suspense of a guy walking up to the ball on the spot, the keeper between the woodwork, standing on the line, holding his line, can't get like
there's attention to it.
There's so much, right? There's intention. There's so much suspense, and it's like,
however,
it's like I would say 75% of the time, a goal is going to be scored on a penalty kick. Well, now they're all the same, but the way that the MLS used to do it, I mean, it worked. But there was a famous one for the New England Revolution when Alexi Lawless was here. Now, I guess American legend Alexi Lawless, who scored one with long hair for New England in Foxborough Stadium. And it was impressive and it was fun to watch. But at the same time, I'd rather have the intent, the walk up, the suspense, the build up. As long as I'm not watching Ronaldo stand over the ball, that's a different story. But I don't know. I think I understand what you mean because you watched it one way and like they did it that way. So it's kind of fun, but I was glad when they changed that. And hockey does it right because it's hockey.
It's kind of a glorified game of rock, paper, scissors, the way that the English or like the world game does it though, don't you think? And it's when it's your team, it's miserable. Like it's so awful. Like it hurts. It's just like it's anxiety inducing. You know what I mean? So
well, that's why you need those best keepers in the world because they can stop more penalties than not because they're usually pretty good at it.
Yeah, I mean, there are some keepers that are good at stopping penalties, I guess, but it's a bit of a crapshoot. It's just a bit of a thing. So yeah, the Ev though. Let's talk about the Ev. You got Benitez now. How do you feel about that? I mean, he used to manage Liverpool, obviously. So like, I know the consensus and everything is like, whatever, whoever can kind of make us win. You're being kind of a miserable prick if you're saying like, oh, I don't want him because he used to manage Liverpool. I don't personally care as a Liverpool fan. He already managed Chelsea. Like, it's right, man's got to work. He already lives in Liverpool. He has a house in Liverpool, so it's probably a convenient job offer for him. Like, he's not supposed to be beholden to these kind of rivalries. Like, he did his job. He's got to earn a living. Or like, what? I'm anxious to know your opinion. Like, where do you think he's going to go? And what is the measure of success as an Everton fan right now? How would he be deemed a successful Everton manager?
Get us into the Conference League, which is really low because right now everything.
Champions League, you mean?
No, the Conference League. You know that there's a third tournament now, right? Did you know that?
The fuck is the Conference League?
Okay, so they have the Champions League, which is the top in England's top 4, and then you got to win one of the cups because they just added it this year. So there's now the Champions League, there's the Europa League, and there's the Conference League.
I'd never heard this.
because it just came in this year. It's the Conference League because they've
seventh, so you got to come in seventh.
You got to come in seventh, and they have finished 9th through 11th basically since I've started following them.
That'd be a good finish. That'd be a good finish for the F.
And so going back to why I started following Everton, because we, as someone who didn't grow up in Europe as you did and didn't follow them from birth, in the time that I really started following them, I've always watched the World Cup, always followed it, always thought it was fun. It's the best in the world, and it's country. You don't see that in many other sports, especially ones that we play in the United States, and we've just been so good at a lot of those other sports until, I know the USA basketball team picked it up, but part of the reason why I ended up following them was because in that World Cup, American goalkeeper Tim Howard was playing for Everton at the time, and I kind of caught on with him, and he was the Everton keeper at the time, and part of it was this was right as the Fenway Group had bought Liverpool, so I was like, all right, well, a reason to root against those guys because I'm never going to put on a Yankees hat. So it was more because of Tim Howard, and when I started following him, started following Everton, and since then we've had 9 managers in
some good ones in there though.
Some really good ones. Coleman's a great manager, but if you come to today and you look at Rafa Benitez, and what I like about him is he's been a kind of a journeyman manager. He's been managing since 1993 when he was with Real Madrid B, but he's managed in Spain, he's managed in England, he's managed in Italy. As you mentioned, he's managed Chelsea. He was the interim in 2012, 2013. He managed Liverpool for 6 years, back in 2004 to 2010. He's been around, and most notably, recently, with Real Madrid back in 2015-16, where he was only there for 25 games. But
he won a pretty exciting Champions League final with Liverpool.
But that's right, and that's the reason why it's nice to have a guy like that. Where the other guys have had the track record, I can kind of equate this to what the New England Revolution have done here, where they were like, all right, we've had these managers, they haven't done a bad job, but we haven't been able to get better. So let's bring in the best American manager we can and bring in Bruce Arena. And that's exactly what I think Everton is trying to do now, is bring in Benitez and be like, okay, well, he's won a Champions League fall. He's managed some of the best teams in the world. He spent 3 years at Newcastle and went 62, 31, and 53. So, sub 500 win percentage, but with Newcastle, that's pretty good to win 62 of 146 games and pick up 31 draws in that mix as well. So what would be successful for him is to get the team to the Conference League. And I think he can do it. And I think with a team that is led by Richarlison up top, who has been phenomenal since he got to Goodison. You have Jordan Pickford, who, has his days, but he is the England #1 for a reason, and he's still pretty young as well, so hopefully he's still getting better. So I think that would be the goal for them. Problem is like you said when we were talking about the Conference League, that's something Liverpool's never going to have to worry about.
Yeah, I would fucking hope not. We were down there for a little while, but
it's a matter of playing those games and being able to attract the players, because you are playing in Europe. And I think that's part of the reason why they even came up with the term in the first place.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people want to come and play for Rafa too. Like you said, he's got a hell of a resume. I don't know if Jordan even has a negative connotation. I think, yeah, he's just been around.
I think with the teams he's managed, I don't think it does.
Well, I don't know, but I get what you meant. And it's like, I think he's got the CV, the qualifications to attract good players, and he plays a nice brand of football. I know he's a good manager. I know you have a good manager. I knew Ancelotti was a good manager as well. I think that showed. But I think that the ownership has to do a better job of keeping him. Let him build something over the next few years. Well, I'm supposed to just be
money, right? He up and left because he was like, "Hey, look at this option."
He's a fucking mercenary as well, though, to a certain extent. He's a great manager, though. But Well, yeah, I mean, I think Benitez is a good manager. I think he'll do well for you guys. But also, I think he made some shrewd signings in the summer. I think that big midfielder you got is really good. His name's escaping me. I put it on the rundown. Richarlison's good. You know, Pickford's got really short arms for his body, and he wrecked a priceless artifact in Virgil van Dijk last year. So I'll never say he's good. But he is the starting goalkeeper for England, whatever that's worth. Well, yeah, they've got some decent players. I think 7th place is on the docket. The problem is the top 6 is so strong now. You know, like I guess Arsenal are really shit though. Like if Arsenal play anything like they played in that first match, where they got hockeyed by a newly promoted team, that's not good. You know what I mean? So there might be a spot open there. Leicester though, pretty good. They'll be in the mix. Nobody's really talking about them. They'll be in the mix. Maybe Tottenham look good against City though. I don't know. It's tough. 7th maybe. It's possible, but it's tough. You'd have to elevate them into a squad that's maybe one level better than I'm looking at them right now. But I think he can do that from where I'm sitting. I've seen him do it before.
The biggest problem with his managing style, I like his style of play, but because of the manager he knows what kind of team he has, and he knows about those top 4, top 5, top 6 teams in the Premier League. So a lot of what Everton supporters are going to see, and a lot of what we're going to watch with this team, and you'll see it in the derby between these two teams, the Merseyside derby, is that they're going to sit back and defend, not park the bus, but they're going to sit back and defend. And the possession numbers are going to be low, especially against those teams. I mean, granted, it's not great, or not a great barometer here, but they only had 49% of the possession this past weekend against Southampton. And
Southampton are really shit. So I don't know if you can go off any. I think there's a chance they get relegated this year. So I don't know how much you want to go off that, but a win's a win. And a comeback win nonetheless, coming back from being 1-0 down in the first half. And the coals are hot underneath Benitez right now too, because it's like, you better produce with all the baggage you're bringing in, I would think is like a lot of the attitude of the Everton fans right now. It's like, you smash Liverpool, so you're going to come and manage it at Everton. You better be fucking winning us games if we're going to accept you, so they'll probably be quicker to turn on him if the results don't match up. So it's good that he was able to start out for a win. So I'm pulling for him because he was like my guy when I first started really supporting Liverpool. So I am pulling for him to a certain extent, but I also fucking hate Everton. So I was I always make the joke. It's like, I don't know, I'm not from Liverpool, so like that rivalry doesn't really stoke my flames as much as say like United. And then Everton are always good for reminding me why I fucking hate them, because they do something like that in Merseyside derby. Fuck. So they're not on my list of favorite teams, obviously, for it's intercity and damaging precious objects reasons, but weirdly pulling for Benitez. So I'm in kind of a weird spot. And you're my friends, and I'd like to see you happy. So
we can all be. That's the nice thing about it, not having playoffs, and they play 38 games and that's it. It's like, all right, so two times that
they shouldn't really be each other's business in the table, so they just play 2 times a year, right? Like you're saying, and we just can hate each other on those days, Because I was mad at you inexplicably when Jordan Pickford,
which was outstanding. We're so.
We're the nearest Everton supporter.
and all of a sudden I'm like, all right, yeah. But I was like, that makes sense. I understand why he's upset. But you mentioned the roster real quick for Everton, and what's nice about this roster, and Benitez I think will do well with it, is because he did sign Decore. That was the sign.
Decore. Yeah, he's good.
Decore.
He looked good. He looked good. He looked like a unit in the midfield.
He fits right in too with the style, and it's interesting because Everton they can never formulate a style because they always have roughly the same players, but never the same managers. So
right, the closest they came was probably under Moyes before he went off to United. Right, they kind of had a look about them when they were grinding out results at that point.
And he was there for a while, but in the rundown that we put together, I mean, you're right about Seamus Coleman, good captain.
I mean, he's an Irish hero as well. I'll never say ever about him.
Sure, but the age is starting to show. But there's some youngsters. I mean, Pickford's not old yet. Mason Holgate's been there forever. Lucas Digne is a good offensive threat.
Didn't have a great game though, did he?
No, he didn't. But and that's the thing about football, right? If the announcers are saying your name too much, it's probably a bad thing in football anyway.
Yeah, they're either like waxing lyrical about how brilliant you are, or if they're like, because I noticed that with Costas Tsimikas, like he was involved a lot, and it was his kind of first game for Liverpool, and like I think that happens in the modern game to fullbacks a lot. It's like he's gonna get tested, he's gonna get tested. Here comes a winger, like it's coming through that way every single time, and especially if it's like a new guy or they, the team thinks that's the weaker side, let's go at him. That you can get overwhelmed as a fullback in the modern game. And like, especially when you're asked to do, like you said, like offensive duties. And it's the same thing in Liverpool. I'm not sure how much of those Digny, I don't fucking know. So whatever that meant.
Well, he's going to have to create opportunities because they're going to need to create opportunities from the middle of the back for Richarlison, who is a very, very good player. And
yeah, he's good.
So fortunate to have him in Everton.
He's good.
Well, that's fine as long as he's good and he can play and he's not doing bad things off the field. I
actually don't hate him because he's one of those strikers that Virgil van Dijk has just in his pocket every single time he plays.
That's true.
Just like every other striker in the world.
Oh, fair, but it's also because Richarlison, as athletic as he is,
he's quick, right? He's good.
Quick. He's quick and he's athletic, but he's not the most physical. Like he tries to be, he pretends to be. But he's a scorer, and the thing is they need to find a way to get him loose and create those opportunities.
Looks like your midfield's better though.
Well, that's been the Achilles heel again for Everton too. Is that the midfield, especially the central midfield, because I mean they were trying to bring youngsters in and play them in the middle for years, and Tom Davies was one of them. He's a pretty good midfielder, but I don't think he's like a Premier League midfielder. But they really tried it. Him and Mason Holgate came up around the same time out of the academy. And it was like, those were the two big names. And unfortunately, Davies just kind of never caught on and started to lose. Duncan Ferguson, who...
Oh, yeah, that guy.
That guy who just seems to, he'll never be a manager in the EPL, but he will always be the caretaker manager for Everton when they feel the need to.
He's like an Everton legend in his own right?
And that's fine. But I think a lot of guys have kind of fallen out of graces with him too. Richarlison was one of those guys when he kind of took over as the caretaker between who was in here before.
It's like you went back. If you go backwards, it's like Ancelotti, Ferguson, and then you had
wasn't Coleman right before that, wasn't it?
Maybe.
No. It was the Spanish guy. I can't remember his name. But nonetheless, Ferguson kind of lost some of those guys. He does a great job at the academy. He really does a good job.
Roberto Martinez, you forgot.
Roberto Martinez, who is now the Belgium manager.
Yeah, that was inexplicable.
No, weird. That's a weird one.
It doesn't match up at all.
I think if Everton can, when they went down 1 this weekend, I was like, all right, well, normally an Everton team that goes down 1 in the first half will roll over. And they didn't, and they scored 3 and they came back and, Decore and Richarlison did their job and brought it back. So 3-1 victory. And I think they're going to have to do the same against Leeds. I think Leeds is back in the Premier League and they have a big following. They're one of those clubs, Dave, that your dad and probably everyone else is like, oh, Leeds. Like Leeds was a huge club.
My dad was a Leeds supporter when he was a kid.
Believe it
or not. Yeah, he loved Leeds when he was really young before, like, they got, I don't know what, like, there's a whole weird kind of, like, Zapruder tape, Kennedy assassination kind of story behind him and why he switched over to Liverpool. But he famously was a Leeds fan when the guy before, oh God, he would fucking kill me for not remembering his name now, but the guy before Brian Clough managed Leeds, they were really good. I don't know, I just remember Colin Meaney played him in the fucking movie, but in the Damned United. But they were really good. They were like a serious outfit for years and years and years.
And now they're back, and I think that's great for Leeds. But if Everton wants to continue to be taken seriously, and Don
Revy was his name. Okay, he's the guy who made Bill Leeds into this like big team full of fucking scumbags. Anyway, go on.
When I really started following Everton, especially, and I had a few friends who were big supporters of Arsenal and Liverpool, and they were like, don't get too excited too early in the season. This is a 38 match season. It's not football American football where you win week 1 and it's a huge deal. There's half as many games in this league.
Used to be true, but at the top of the table, the margins are slim these days. There's been a couple of seasons with City and Liverpool going back and forth where the first team to drop points were going to be the team to lose, and that didn't happen for ages and ages and ages, and they were neck and neck, and they were, they almost looking like they might take every point available. So like when the margin shrunk at the top of the table like that, I kind of I agree with you. I used to say, don't look at the table until Christmas. That was like the rule, right? That was kind of everybody's kind of having fast rule. Nowadays, I'm like, every point counts. I'm like a neurotic on the table, like right away. And I'm totally overreacting to early games and early performances. Yeah. I mean, I've been broken now by these really stressful, like if the Rays are thin margins at the top of the league,
Well, I think partly what it comes down to too is the fact that, it's a game within a game. Like you can look at the top of the table and say, okay, well, you don't want to lose points because then the cities, the Uniteds can jump ahead and take that 3-point threshold, and that could count at the end of the year. Whereas someone who middles like Everton, you could lose a couple matches at the beginning of the year, and it's like, it's fine because we kind of know what team we have. We know where we're going to end up.
Right.
We're probably not going to Europe anyway, so we'll probably finish 8 through 12, and that's what we'll do. We'll take our money and we'll, we go spend it where we need to. But yeah, at the top of the table, you're absolutely right. But they got to get another 3 points against Leeds. I think that's kind of necessary.
We'll see where Leeds are then as well, because like they're spunky. They can take points off teams. So it'd be good. Like, I do agree. It's kind of a lot of it depends on what your preseason looked like. Like what I like to do a lot of the times, I like to go when like Man City lose or like Man United lose. I like to go on their subreddit and watch them like panic. But it was disappointingly calm. The Man City subreddit after the loss to Tottenham.
I've heard Man City fans don't exist.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many of them. There's not many of them. They're an elusive group,
They put on red real quick.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's tough to fill that stadium sometimes. They hear anyway, not to be a dick, but yeah. I mean, there's a lot of the fan base is relatively new. But yeah, like it was disappointing because I thought they were going to be fucking going insane again, but they're really just like, whatever. We lost to Tottenham. Like, it's fine. It could be worse. So they're not panicking yet. They're not at panic stations yet. It's from the small sample size I was able to take. So maybe I am overreacting to the Liverpool win, but like if we win every other game, then there's a good chance we'll win the league.
Yeah, if you go 38-0-0, you might.
The games that Benitez and Everton have to win are the games against the Leedses, of the world,
beat the bottom 10,
the Burnleys of the world. Yeah, exactly. And like maybe he was actually always really good at nicking points off big teams, like teams with much better players than like the Liverpool teams that he was on. I remember a lot of the time, like he would always like United would always win the league, but like we would always beat United that year, or like whatever. Except for 08 when he came pretty close to win the league that year actually. But he's good at that. Like he's kind of good at giant killing. So I wonder if he might try and take that approach, just like go for it against your Tottenhams and Liverpools and stuff.
I think
it should enliven the Merseyside derby a little bit because I am on record as loving Merseyside derby day. Like I get really excited. Except for when Van Dijk gets injured. But I love that day because it's full of pageantry, and I love pageantry of any kind.
Right. Well, it helps when the teams literally play a half a mile away from each other.
It does help.
Yeah. And that's a pretty big footballing city. As small as the city of Liverpool is, it is
miles and miles of heart, though.
Miles and miles of heart. That's right. That Coach McGinty. But real quick before we end, two more questions, and one is, you mentioned Arsenal, and the reason why the Arsenal loss is so big is not only they've just had a tough time, and why their manager's name is
Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, Arteta has had a tough time here. Even in the preseason, they had a tough time. But the reason this was so big is because the team that they lost to, Brentford, has not been in the Premier League for 74 years. And the last game they played in the Premier League 74 years ago, they lost to Arsenal 2-0.
Yeah, Arsenal are so shit, and it's disappointing because I have recently revealed to friends and loved ones and close family members that I actually had a little bit of a crush on Arsenal when I was a teenager. I used to, obviously I was a Liverpool supporter, but the Wenger Arsenals with Henry and the Henry and Vieira, and like the style of play that they played, like built one touch passing around the box, passing into the back of the net. Thought it was so sexy. Like they totally caught my eye. I was always looking at them out of the corner of my eye, and it's a hard thing to admit as a Liverpool fan that the Liverpool crest branded on my skin, Joe, and it was hard. It was like some marriages, that you go through rocky times like that, especially when you're young and dumb. But it is disappointing for that reason to see Arsenal kind of fall from grace so catastrophically. And like I kind of had a hunch that Arteta was a bit of a phony, especially to come in from a place like Man City where he's sort of being venerated as this tactical genius. But I would always have my suspicions. And then he comes into Arsenal and it's like, I understand the ownership has its fair set of problems, but they just look like a team without any direction against what were they called? Sorry, Brentford, right? There's a lot of B names in the league this year. Brighton Hove Albion, Brentford, Burnley. Well, yeah, I mean, they just look like a team without any direction, like no impetus. Looked a little bit better in the second half, but I don't know. I don't know where they go from here. The problems that they have to solve are so catastrophic, and especially how leaky their defense is. Like there was some schoolboy defending there at times. Like, they didn't even look. Most of the time, you have what you call a smash and grab in those situations where a really shit team or a new team or not a great team will beat a bigger team because they kind of surprise them with some. They played Arsenal off the park for a lot of that game. Like they were straight up better than them, and that is like very
well. They ran
so upsetting. And like, yeah, they faded, I think, towards like, the newly promoted team. I think the fitness levels, like the nutrition tracking and stuff, like sort of started to catch up with them. But Arsenal really didn't have the grit to really do anything. And then like they poured too many men forward, age old, get them on the counter attack. That's it, seals the game. I mean, that's the trap everybody falls into because you don't really have a choice. You have to go and try and win it or at least get a draw because it's going to be embarrassing if you lose to Brentford. So, I feel for them in that sense. And my brother and I were talking, they remind me a lot of the Liverpool team from 2012, where it's just full of dead weight. And like, there's just a lot that needs to be done. But that Liverpool team, 2012, that Liverpool team was like a Sturridge, Suarez, Coutinho trio signing away from being fucking awesome and almost winning the league. So, maybe it's not as bad as we think. But they need to sign somebody who can actually defend or like teach one of their players to defend. Cause like fucking hell, that was bad.
Well, for me, as an Everton, that's a Mike line right there. For me, as an Everton supporter, I'm okay if they just fall from graces hard because that leaves a spot in the top 8, top 7 for Everton. And it doesn't get easier for Arsenal. They have Chelsea next at home. Then
they could have 0 points by the I was just listening to another podcast that said that they could have, with their fixture record, they have to play Chelsea and Man City in the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, they have Chelsea at home. Then they have to go to West Brom and then go to Man City, and then they have Norwich and Burnley. So I mean, but they lost to Brentford, and Brentford was a newly promoted team.
I mean, maybe it was a fluke,
Maybe it was a fluke on both ends. Maybe Arteta just didn't have the team ready and Brentford was pumped up. Who knows? I
heard a preview. A guy who's an Arsenal fan went on a podcast I listened to called the Anfield Wrap, which is great, by the way. Like, if after you're done listening to us, go listen to them. And it was a preview. It was prior to the Arsenal Brentford match. He was like, I think we might lose. I think we might end up with 0 points by transfer deadline day. And that's where I got that little tidbit because of their schedule. And I was like, even the Arsenal fans are saying, the ones that are on podcasts are saying that they might not beat Brentford. So they obviously knew something was fucking up, right? Like, Jesus Christ.
I love that about football fans too, is how honest.
Morose.
Yeah, and morose. Like, it's like when I can sit here and talk about the New England Patriots and be like, yeah, they're gonna be 13-4, which I don't believe. I think their number is like 11-6, 10-7. But when but I'm going to say, oh yeah, they could win with Everton. I'm like, they'll probably finish 10th because that's just what they do. And it's you're right. It's very morose. It's very honest. And to hear that from Arsenal fans is big because Arsenal fans always also seem to go too hard one way or too hard.
Yeah. Like, to Arsenal. Yeah. And
it's always them because it's like they're the ones that are always like, we it's only the first week. We don't want to get all excited. And
they're very emotional group. They're very emotional. They're a very emotional group. They are.
They really are.
God love them. God love them.
To equate something else to American football is the Lionel Messi contract with PSG in France. So Lionel Messi, if you've gotten this far, you pay attention to football a little bit. But Lionel Messi leaves Barcelona after 20 years. He literally came through their academy. They couldn't come to an agreement on a contract, and nobody was going to pay the fee to get him from Barcelona. So it just ended up being a stalemate where he said, I'm going to let the contract run out and, go sign elsewhere. And it was kind of a mutually agreed upon thing at the end of the contract that he wasn't going to come back to Barcelona. Very Tom Brady-esque kind of, they fell out of love with each other, and the player said, I'm going to go somewhere else. And the team said, we'll have to move forward. I don't know if Messi is going to be as, this is a really weird sentence to come out of my mouth, but I don't know if Messi is going to be as missed at Barcelona as Tom Brady was in New England. But Messi goes off and signs a 2-year $82 million contract.
It's tough to compare. I think the bigger issue is the biggest difference I can see between the two situations is that I think the New England Patriots are run quite well. I think they're run by a competent group of people that essentially know what they're doing. And I think you can point to reasons as to why they let Tom Brady go. Barcelona is not run well, and it's been run very unwell for quite a long time now. And they just couldn't afford to pay Leo Messi like half his wages. And that is madness. It's bonkers. I'm sure there was a very stupid subset of the internet saying like he should play for free, which is not, that's just so stupid. Like, no, he's not going to play.
No, nobody's going to play for free.
There's also a rule. There's like a law. You can't garnish more than 50% of your wages in Spain or something like that. So that was the lowest he could go. There's a lot of different rumors about it, but you lost Leo Messi because you couldn't afford him and he was like willing to cut his wages. Like, that's pathetic, Barcelona. That's a sign of bigger problems. That place, They bought Coutinho for like 150 million. And now he's worth like 5. So it's just bad investing,
But that seems to be what some of those super teams do. Those big teams where they'll spend that money and then invest poorly. It doesn't seem to happen in England as often because I think they're a little more careful. But I think when some of those teams in Italy, Spain, France, well, not France, less so, but mostly Italy and Spain, is when they fall in love with somebody, they go and spend that money, and then they don't know what to do with it afterwards, and they're selling at a fraction of the cost because they
didn't even get anything for him, which is wild.
And it's not like they get a draft pick like they do in American sports, right?
But that PSG attack is going to be absolutely sick.
that team is ridiculous.
It's so annoying because like everyone's going to pick them in FIFA now, and it's just going to be like, ugh. Every time you have to play them, it's going to be like, oh, great.
I kind of look at it and hope in a way that Neymar's issues continue. And I don't mean that on a personal level. I just mean that from a team level. Like, I hope.
And he's going to play so good because he already played so good with Messi. Like, Messi's just going to come in and make everybody way better. It's just like, I wish there was a way to poke a hole into it, but it's just like, it's just so cut and dry. Like, they're going to be so good.
And PSG is like they're the
they got Gini Wijnaldum.
Yeah.
Wijnaldum's fucking nasty.
Well, they got Donnarumma in a great role, and he's 21 years old, so he's going to be around forever.
It's going to be a lot to deal with. Hey, I mean, more power to Messi, I guess. I'm happy enough with him because Liverpool bullied him out of a Champions League semi-final, got in his fucking head, embarrassed him on TV. So he's none of our business either. We punked him already. Best of luck, Leo.
Fade off into the sunset, into the Parisian sunset, hopefully. So this was our first MTP soccer show, the football kickabout. You're right, the MTP football kickabout, a little red versus blue. We didn't really get into it as much because we're only allowed to hate each other twice a year during the Merseyside derby.
It was a good broad show. Get more specific next time. It was good. I enjoyed it.
And maybe at some point we can bring the other guys in and actually talk some football.
They're not going to want to do that.
They're Craig might have been paying attention a little bit.
Craig's going to learn a thing or two. Yes, you should start watching the matches, Craig.
Craig, we'll do that more when you come over for birthday parties and fires and stuff. That's what we'll do. So
he's not even listening.
Yeah, no, he listened. He gave me a nod. So for DK Sizzle, Dave Clarke. I am Joe Malkin. Craig D'Alessandro is our EP. We thank you for joining us for the MTP Football Kickabout, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Step inside the marketing mirror to uncover marketing secrets, discover gems, tactics, lessons, and campaigns you can use, next gen or fundamentals. Grab the marketing magic to improve your marketing and win more business.
Electricast.
Hey, what's happening out there, everybody? This is Lawrence Ross, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my podcast, The Lawrence Ross Show.
Egomaniac.
It's a 2-hour weekly exploration into my mind. I also do sketches, celebrity impersonations.
You're out of order!
And I also do song parodies. Not too shabby for a blind guy.
Not only are you visually impaired, but you are geographically impaired.
New episodes are released every Friday. Check it out on your favorite podcasting platform or listen to it here on Society 13 on Electricast.
Electricast.